What's the word? What's the word? Arthur Moats back in the saddle, joined by a familiar face. We obviously had him on last week. I'm talking about Mark Bergin, the producer for WRAL Channel 5 in Raleigh, North Carolina, as well as being the host of the Bleav In Steelers podcast. And let's see. Last time we were talking, we were trying to figure out this here quarterback situation. Now, since then, we've had some updates, right? We've brought in Mason Rudolph. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But we've been all in on the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes, or should I say the Aaron Rodgers experience. And Big Killer Cam Hayward, the team captain, finally spoke out on the situation as well. Basically, saying, man, we want you to decide, right? You either want to be here or you do not want to be here. And that's definitely caused a lot of a ripple effect within Steeler Nation. So, of course, Mark, I had to come and tap back in with you to get your thoughts on this situation, man. Aaron Rodgers, the weight, and Cam Hayward as well, man. So what is your take? How are you feeling about this situation right now?
Arthur, first, thank you for having me. And it's like, make a decision, make up your mind. I don't think Cameron Hayward is going to be going on an ayahuasca retreat anytime soon with Aaron Rodgers. So, that's how I interpret that. And then, I thought about other circumstances where, this as a former player, where behind the scenes you're texting and calling, oh, you really like it here, or, oh, no, run for the hills, go to another organization. To me, if this is out there publicly, the longer and longer this plays out, it's almost like Aaron Rodgers. At what point do the Steelers just say, hey, we're moving on? Now, publicly, I wouldn't do that yet because perhaps you could get him on a better deal. But right now, it looks like it's Pittsburgh and the New York Giants. I've seen that the Vikings are out. I don't know. But what I wanted to ask you, too, is is there a mystery team out there that we're not aware of that would want Aaron Rodgers for the 2025 season? Because outside of those three teams, right, I don't know how much of a decision there is at this point.
Yeah, I think the only other team that I would consider as a super dark horse candidate would be if Tennessee decided that they didn't want to go quarterback and they would much rather, invest in Aaron Rodgers and kind of go that route. If they did that and they said, hey, next year we like those prospects a little bit better at quarterback, I could potentially see that. But once again, that would be them basically saying that they don't think Cam Ward or Shador could be that type of guy for them. To me personally, I don't like that. I think if you can get a Cam Ward, you get Cam Ward. I think if you can get a Shador, you get a Shador, because those guys at the position, the age, the talent, you just feel like that's going to age better for your franchise. Whereas with Rodgers, we know it's very expensive. It could just be 1 to 2 years, but it could also go nuclear, which we've seen obviously with his track record. So part of me gets where Cam is. But going back to you though, Mark, it's Aaron Rodgers we talking about. Does his track record warrant a little bit of special treatment like this? Does it his proof of performance at this level kind of make you say, you know what, we don't necessarily have to be in such a hurry, because if we do land you, you're one of the generational talents. You're one of those guys that has been talked about as an all-time top 5 quarterback. Doesn't that at least make us feel a little bit like, all right, man, maybe we got a little bit more patience for him?
Nah. Nah. And the reason I say that is 41, he'll turn 42. Tom Brady and LeBron James have spoiled us of just assuming an athlete can go play into his 40s. The only thing where I might say maybe Arthur is coming off the Achilles. Coming off any Achilles, I think you need 2 years, not the immediate year after. But he had, before the DK deal, I'd argue he had better weapons in New York. So how's that going to work in potentially Pittsburgh or even the Giants? It's just the phase of his career that he's in. The phase of his career that he's in, it's no, because the market is what the market is. It's what other teams are going to pay him, not just the Steelers.
No, that's absolutely right. I just had to ask though, because I do agree. Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall, yes, I like those weapons better. But when we're talking about the Jets offensive line, I mean, I low key feel like our offensive line was actually better. I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah.
I was
Take out
like,
the word low
we got
key. Take out
them
the word low
already. We
key.
got
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. It's almost like
Yeah.
Jordan with the Wizards. I'm not saying Aaron
Oh
Rodgers
man.
done the same with Jordan, but that's the phase of his career that he's
Yeah.
in.
No,
So
I
I
will agree
think
with you there.
there's maybe a quarter of a tank of gas left in the tank, but like there's not. He's not what he was when he was a 4-time MVP and he was, slinging the thing all over the yard.
Yeah.
He's not that dude anymore. He might be able to show that for a game or two. Heck, we
Yeah.
saw Russell Wilson throw for 400 yards this last year in a game. So it's not that he's not capable for putting it together for a game or two, but throughout the course of a full season, he hasn't been that guy for several years now. And
Yeah.
it's just Father Time's undefeated in the NFL. The NFL, the National Football League, no. It's not for long. The
Absolutely.
average career is what, 3 or 4
Absolutely.
years and you're done and out. So he's done it for at the highest level for a really, really, really long time. He's not in that phase of his career at this point. And the longer and longer this drags out, the more I'm led to believe that the Steelers are going to go with Mason Rudolph and someone else other than Rodgers. Just because, again, the reason I'm like trying to figure out a mystery team, the Steelers, the Giants, and the Vikings, I think are still all possibilities.
But we did see the Vikings. They said that they were going to roll with JJ McCarthy. We saw, I think that was just 2 days ago. We saw that report.
We'll see. But yes, the Saints, he wouldn't want to go there because what do you have there? The Browns, who need a quarterback. But again, if he's actually like the Steelers and the Vikings probably give Rodgers the best possibility of winning a Super Bowl, as slim as that might be. But then, the Raiders were in the mix before they traded for Geno. You keep mentioning Shador. The one of the best known secrets is Tom Brady's relationship with Shador Sanders, and the Raiders had the 6th pick. So it's like if Shador goes past 6, I'd be very surprised just given the relationship that those two had dating back to high school. So
that's been his mentor.
Surprised.
He's talked about that so often, man. And even at Colorado, when he says, man, it's time to go Brady mode. That was like his version of tapping into that clutch mindset.
Well, I talked to Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, back before he was Coach Prime.
Let's go.
Several years ago, during the pandemic, we're all sitting around the house.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
Ike and I got a chance to talk with him, and he told us about how Shador got to schedule a workout with Tom Brady when Brady was down in Florida with the Bucs.
Wow.
And they were going down to Boca Raton. So at the time, Shador was committed to FAU. This was even before the Jackson State days.
Yep, I remember all this.
My point is their relationship goes back years now.
Yeah.
And Coach Prime was like, Shador's telling him, we're going to work out with Tom today. He goes, excuse me? Tom who?
Tom.
Like, Tom Brady, the coach.
Oh.
Coach Prime goes, this is so funny. He goes, we there, man. He doesn't say we're there, we're going. Not even proper English. We there, man.
Man.
Yeah, it's I'd be very surprised if Shador's there at 6 where the Raiders pick. If he goes past there, I think it'd be a great fit because he can learn under Geno Smith and the Raiders, and he doesn't have to start right away. So a little inside baseball there, but what led to all this is
I'm with you, though.
Potential destinations for Aaron Rodgers. And again, this keeps dragging on and on and on and on and on. And the longer that drags out, it's like either mystery team. I don't think that's a huge possibility. Or like, could he even be contemplating retirement?
That's what I was about to ask you, because we did see that report at one point as well. Him mulling the different team options, but also retirement as well. That makes me more skittish than anything else. When he starts flirting with retirement, it's like, man, are you sure you're actually willing to commit? Because we know how much of a grind physically and also mentally this can be. If you're second guessing that, it could already be time for you to hang it up. So I'm
Yes.
hoping not to see too much more of that, but that definitely has me a little bit concerned while he's taking this time right now.
What's that like from the player perspective, Arthur? Because I've always heard if you're even contemplating it
Oh, you're
mentally,
out.
you're already
Yeah,
gone.
you're gone. Absolutely. By the time you start thinking about it, you've already checked out. And now it's let me fight that. It's the equivalent to senioritis. We all have experienced that when you're the senior, it's time to graduate, it's the last month of school, and you're just, all right, let me just make sure I get up on time. All right, I got to get to class. You stop putting on your nice clothes. You're all of a sudden you're in sweatpants. She's like, yep, you don't really care about anything because you just checked out. That's what it feels like at times, and you're trying to fight against that. But at the same time, for some of those highly skilled guys, you can see where 90% of Aaron Rodgers, people are still going to take that version versus 100% of Mason Rudolph. If we're just simply talking about talent. Now, we know the thing that changes the equation is the dollar amount. But I think that that's from the Steelers' perspective, why they're not as apt to just move on. Because if we just take all the dollar amount away and I simply say, hey, Mark, who would you rather have at quarterback for your team this year, Aaron Rodgers or Mason Rudolph? What was your response going to be?
Yeah, it's Rodgers. I mean,
Yeah.
like if we're playing Madden,
If we go,
if
we say Rodgers versus Jackson,
like,
right.
yeah,
Rodgers versus Jackson Dart, Rodgers versus Jalen Milroe, Rodgers versus Will Howard. We're all going to say the same thing. I would take Rodgers. And I think that, that's still at the root of it, what the Steelers are seeing. That part is still real, regardless of what Rodgers has come down from. When we're seeing 4-time MVP, we're saying you were on a whole other stratosphere. And now you're getting back to like regular people realm. And that's the kind of debate with it. But to me, I'm like, he still gives you one of the best chances to win this upcoming season. And I just think that that's the dilemma that we're all kind of in right now.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. I was going to say, with the caveat of what's best for 2025, but what's best for, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. This isn't even really a Rodgers problem so much that it is a Steelers problem of still trying to figure out who the heir is after Big Ben, who the guy is after Big Ben. Yeah. They tried with Kenny Pickett. It didn't work. We could go through the whole list. It hasn't worked to this point because we're still trying to talk about it. And potentially bringing in Rodgers, and it's not, again, this is not so much Rodgers as it is, are you using a Band-Aid to try to treat a flesh wound? And if I'm asking the question, you kind of know the answer.
Well, I got to say this, though. You said we haven't found that answer just yet. I beg to differ. We have re-signed only one quarterback since Ben Roethlisberger. And he was homegrown, full-blooded Pittsburgh Steelers. Draft pick, might I add. Talking about Mason Rudolph, baby. He's back. Second stint. Save Christmas the first go around. This time we giving him 2 years, 8 M's, 4.5 guarantee. Come on, Mark. That's the guy. That's the guy. Come on, man. How you feeling about it? He's back.
I do feel good, and I think it's a great value contract. You said this on my show, Bleav In Steelers, the other week. You can get out of the stadium with Mason Rudolph. You know what you're going to get. The one thing, like the last time he was in a Steelers uniform, it was in the aftermath of the Matt Canada non-offense when you had the two assistants who were filling in after they fired
Mike Sullivan, Eddie Faulkner. Yes.
And so you had him running that offense. Arthur Smith's offense is a little bit different, but like, hey, we're going to run it down your throat, set up the play action, and throw it deep. Mason Rudolph's got a good deep ball. So I am curious to see how he fits into this new offense, but in terms of the contract value, that's great. Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson, though, there's just a lot to be desired. But like, listen.
What started? Both of those guys started playoff games.
Tomlin did it.
Both have started playoff games.
Tomlin, yeah, and Mitch Trubisky was a Pro Bowler. Like, what was my point? Hang on, let me retrack here. So here's what it does. If Tomlin could go 8-8 with a younger less developed Mason Rudolph in 2019 and Duck Hodges, I'm confident he could get you to 8-8. The Steelers could scheme it up, muck it up, whatever verb you want to use. And again, for the value, one thing I wanted to ask you too, Arthur, you mentioned this on my show saying, okay, the Steelers should load up around Rudolph. Mm-hmm. I'm fine with that because that might be your best option right at this point. Who's left in free agency to where you could go do that if you have the salary cap space? Yeah. So then it's twofold. You could extend a player like a TJ Watt. You could extend a player like a George Pickens. You could also potentially go make more trades and kind of make this more NBA than NFL. Mm-hmm. But if you do want to load up around Rudolph, I know you mentioned signing other players. How do the Steelers do that? Just because we're, a week and a half, 2-3 weeks into free agency at this point, and the draft is approaching. How does Pittsburgh do that if Rudolph is indeed the guy?
Yeah, so to me, I think if you're taking that approach because you did wait a little too long, the initial mindset was Cooper Kupp. That was the initial guy prior to him signing with the Seahawks. Now, when you're starting to look, I say, okay, you have a lot of cash still available to you. How much do you want to bank on a draft pick coming in here, hitting the ground running? If we don't like that, let's use these picks that we do have and start fishing around in terms of the trade market to see who are some of these younger receivers who, or even younger skill position players who haven't got that second contract just yet. The guy that's right on the hill of that, and go out there and take a shot at trading one of those guys, and you be the one who set their market. You be the guy who sets that extension because we do have that cash available. I look at that approach because that's the way that the Rams have built it up when they went on their run to go to back-to-back or Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowls in 4 years. That's the approach. Even with Tampa to an extent, they did that when they brought in some of those free agents. We talked about Brady, but they also had an Antonio Brown who came in and really made their offense that much more explosive. And if you look at the running backs that they had as well, a lot of those guys were also people that they went and just acquired. So I look at some of those models, and I look at even with the Chiefs more recently, some of the things that they've done. Man, just give me one big name receiver, one guy that I could just go out there and pay to come here and help me out. That's kind of what I'm looking at and saying, go find it that way. It doesn't just have to be whoever is just a regular unrestricted free agent right now, because, that is a little bit, scarce right now. But I do think you can take that approach. Is it aggressive? Yes. But I don't put as much stock in draft picks coming in and developing because the data shows that they're more likely to not develop than they are to develop. And that's first rounders all the way down to the undrafted guys. So why put such a premium on these picks when I can take this cash, take those draft picks, and go out there and pay the premium on a proven player prior to him going out there and, breaking the banks per se. So that would be the approach that I would take with it.
Let me piggyback off this. I'm fine passing on Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp has battled injuries. He has not had a 1,000-yard season since 2021. So remember the Triple Crown, but it's been several years now where he's been able to stay consistently healthy to play. But
he would essentially be a third option in our offense, DKGP included. That's way less stress on a player, and that helps those guys play way longer, and be more available versus in LA where, up until last year, realistically, he was still option one. That's a way different ask for those type of dudes, man, at that stage.
There's a difference between being Batman and Robin. I'm with you there.
Absolutely.
I'm with you there in terms of finding another receiver. I'd want to find someone younger because even if you're not able to land the stud quarterback we all seek, it makes coming to the Steelers heck of a lot more intriguing next offseason.
Absolutely.
And DK's under contract. Even if you can't come to terms with George Pickens, you could franchise tag him next year.
You have options. Absolutely.
So if you have one other guy, like stud receivers, I'm talking about true difference makers at receivers at the talent caliber of a DK Metcalf or a George Pickens. I like this plan, and you could see what Rudolph could do with that. So again, that's a lot of times been more of an NBA model than an NFL model, but it could potentially work in terms of you get by this season I mean, honestly, we just need someone to get DK and George Pickens the
You see
football.
it? And on top of that, it still would help you operate under the rookie quarterback or cheaper quarterback model. Because if the plan is you're going to roll with Mason for this year, even if you don't draft a guy that you think is the heir apparent, well, it still leaves you with the flexibility that, hey, if you want to next year, you could still do that if you wanted to. And that's the whole thing we're trying to figure out. We don't want to get locked into this long term or a financially burdening deal with the dude that's, aging out, regardless if you're a quarterback or a wide receiver. But that's kind of, how I'm looking at it right now. I guess the last thing I would ask you is this, though. With all the information we currently have, right? The Mason situation, we're obviously still halfway in, halfway out, waiting on Rodgers. What does this do to your draft focus now? Going into the draft, like I said, a couple of weeks away now. How has any of this impacted what your focus or philosophy is going to be?
Some of the free agents still out there at quarterback at the time of this recording, from my understanding, is
Uh-huh.
Joe Flacco, Tyler Huntley, Drew Lock still out there too.
Yeah. Come on, man. You know Drew
Maybe.
Lock out there. Come on
Sure,
now.
sure, sure. And I'm a Mizzou guy, so I should love him. I should love him. I'm a Missouri graduate. Cannon arm. Maybe you go with one of those options. Maybe. I would think a day 2, day 3 guy. For me, I double dip. I get a day 2 or day 3
Okay.
quarterback in this year's draft, and then in next year's draft, I look first, second, third round. I look for another quarterback, and I double dip, and I see, let me get as many swings at the plate as I can get, and maybe you strike gold, and maybe you knock one out of the park. That's my approach.
Okay.
And you've got to draft and develop. And sometimes it's not the first round quarterback. I know in the last several years, second round quarterbacks have not succeeded well. Like Jalen Hurts is the exception to that rule. You try to draft and develop someone. I mean, Brock Purdy's a good example of someone.
I was going to
Mr.
ask,
Irrelevant.
do you have a name? Does anybody, make you smile a little bit when you think of them in this upcoming draft, mid-rounds area?
I like Dart as the third quarterback, but if he's there by the third round, I'd be shocked. I mean, because remember, the
Steelers talking about him right now.
The Steelers don't have their second round pick in the DK deal, which is why I would love to see Pittsburgh trade back from 21, still get the guy they want later in the first round, and then maybe get, I mean, wishful thinking would be a second round pick back, but maybe then have two-thirds or a fourth. Will Howard's a guy out there potentially. All right, we got to talk about this. We will talk about this when we can end here. The Jalen Milroe Pro Day workout.
Come
I would
on,
have been
Mr.
more surprised.
437.
But, okay, I would have been more surprised had he not run a 4.37, given his athletic ability. But did we see him play football?
Fast.
Did we see him actually play football this last year in SEC play in 2024? He had 5 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. I understand Jermaine Burton and Isaiah Bond. Burton went to the NFL. Bond went to Texas. I know he didn't have those guys. Ryan Williams, who is a 17-year-old freshman receiver, was his number one target. I understand all of this. But he averaged like 4.3 yards a carry. The year before was 3.3. I know he's a goal line threat. He has a nose for the end zone. But, this is a very good athlete. But when it comes to actually playing quarterback, you need someone who is able to develop him as a quarterback. I would have been more surprised had he not run a 4.37. I just think he's going to need some coaching, like a lot of players. And I'm not trying to just bash on Jalen Milroe here. For the vast majority of quarterbacks, I think there are only a few that are like Andrew Luck or let's see, Joe Burrow, John Elway, Peyton Manning types that are going to have success regardless of where they go. I think more often than not, it's what personnel do you have around them?
Oh,
what
absolutely.
The
situation matters.
The situation in the infrastructure, I think, is heck of a lot more important when it comes to the quarterback position than a player's individual talent that they have coming into the league. I think Milroe needs to go to a situation where it is the right fit. And that's where I'll land there.
No, and that's absolutely right. And honestly, I share a very similar sentiment. The unicorn traits quarterbacks make me nervous because there's not a lot of track record of those guys actually coming in and developing. We, love the Lamar Jacksons, the Josh Allens of the world, the Jaden Daniels / Kyler Murrays of the world, but those are far and few in between when you think about how many other of these athletic specimen type quarterbacks that come in here and just never really develop. So to me, man, I'm with you with that mindset. The situation most definitely matters. If you're Milrow, you might want to go to Baltimore or maybe like Washington with the Commanders. All right. But yeah, that's gonna be one of those ones that we will see how that plays out, man. But
The
lastly,
comparison to Jackson is just so lazy too. It's just like
it is. It's
just,
like they're different. They're totally different, man.
yeah. So
Yeah.
sorry, that's not a shot at you, Arthur, at all.
Yeah.
It's just like I've seen that out there, and I'm just like,
yeah. Oh, because
anyways.
he can run and throw it. That means he's gonna run and develop into it. It's like, no, they're different players, man. But you know how it is. You know how it is.
I didn't mean to derail the show.
You're good, baby. You are good. Trust me, you're good, man. You are good. Trust me, you're good on that one, man. Shoot, I was gonna wrap it up with this though. Last time me and you were talking, you had asked me about teammates that could hoop, and I brought up Cam Hayward and Big Ben. I might have to add a new guy to the equation. Have you seen DK Metcalf?
Oh man,
did you see it? Did you see the video?
The cradle.
What?
He's cradling the basketball and throwing it and slamming it through the hoop like it's a baby.
Come on, man.
He's holding the basketball like it's a baby or like a loaf of bread tucked under his arm. He cradles it through and just slams it through the hoop. Oh my word. And he makes it look as if like
easy. It's just chilling.
I'm 5'7". He makes me like think that maybe I could do that. It's just like
I'm looking, I'm just like, I've seen that gym. That's where all the NBA guys go and they get their shots off, and you look like one of them. And then he pulled up from deep range and shot. I'm like, DK, that's what you're doing? That's what okay. I changed my answer. That's the guy you better watch out for. All right. DK, that's the guy to watch out for.
He did it so casually as if anyone off the street, like, do you even think he stretched or warmed up before that?
Like, what is that? Yes.
Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord. I found a clip too of Ike Taylor talking about how after they would win Super Bowls, they would play these basketball exhibitions and scrimmages, and they would go all throughout.
Yes,
and he was just like, "Oh man, I could send you the clip." But there were some really good basketball players. Like I know a lot's made of like, oh, well, football players couldn't do what basketball players could do, or vice versa. And I'm just like, if you're a good athlete, you're a good athlete.
You're a good athlete.
Straight up.
Yes,
straight up.
And that's literally the case, man. Yeah, some of those games though, because they were still running those even while I was here up until around COVID time frame. And it was always fun to, like you said, man, see some of the dudes that you only associate football with, and then you see them on the court and it's like, oh, they actually do have a skill set. They actually are very gifted athletically, and they do have, what it takes to really dominate a lot of people on this court, man. So yeah, but I did have to throw that in there, man, because with DK Metcalf and that video dropping, I'm like, man, wow. Yeah.
Good luck for opposing DBs this year. Jump ball to DK deep. Like, good luck.
Good luck. Yeah.
Good luck. Trying to climb the ladder, trying to high point the football against the size and speed. Like, man, I would love to see another two-sport athlete to do it professionally. I would love, like, that's why I think Travis Hunter's such an intriguing prospect. Like, both sides of the football. Like, let's see things we haven't seen before. I would love to see another athlete
break
do
the mold,
that. I'm
man.
not holding my breath for it to happen, but like, I'll say
tough,
one other
man.
thing too. I've seen the pitchers in baseball that can throw both ways. We're going to live to see a day where we see an ambidextrous quarterback.
Oh yeah, absolutely we will. Yes. Like you said, with pitching, we already seeing some of that pop up. Now we've had two pitchers at least recently that can throw 90 plus right or left. So we do like that. But yeah, you're going to get that point where a quarterback can throw it with either hand. Mahomes flirts with it at times, and we're getting surprised or enamored with that. So the way that the game is evolving with the information and with these younger kids as well, they're fearless in terms of what they're willing to try, what they're willing to put on tape because of the generation before them. And no different when we were playing, when we first saw the prime times of the world start acting with it they did on camera. It's like, Oh, all right. Well, that's going to open the door and just breed more creativity. So, yeah, man, athletically, these dudes, man, do not be surprised by it. I'm just shocked, though, man, at times when I see just how much, it's evolved, how great some of these athletes are at such a young age. You're like, you're doing things that it took guys years to figure out.
Yeah.
At 16, you're doing this. Like, wow, man, the detail in some of their work is really impressive.
You mentioned Mahomes with both hands. I know Stafford with the no looks,
Uh-huh.
but with the Chiefs, they've done this a little bit, but I think this is the next iteration of offense,
Yeah.
is implementing more laterals into an offense,
Yeah.
not just hook and
Game
ladders,
changer.
but
What
it's
Travis Kelce was doing. Like
yes,
down the grass,
yes,
lateral. Yeah.
it's the
Break the
next
code.
iteration of like triple
Mm-hmm.
option,
Yep.
RPO. There are elements of how you can manipulate a defense to get them to do one thing and react,
Mm-hmm.
and it opens up someone else. Like, I think that
Yep.
is like how offense continues to evolve
Yeah.
beyond 2025. I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
next iteration. How a team does that, and the team that's able to implement that, I think you have a strategic advantage.
Yeah.
When that will happen, it'll take time, but it's,
Hey, look,
that
don't
clip
be
DK put
surprised.
out
It
there,
won't take too long, man. It won't take
that
too long.
clip
The
with
way this
DK,
game is evolving.
that clip with DK though, man, it was just like, does he still have any eligibility left, man? With
It's
March
like,
Madness
dude.
tipping off today, it's
Like,
like,
seriously,
wow,
man.
wow.
Seriously. No, without a doubt, man. But that will conclude it for the day, man. We got to do this again. Like I said, man, I'm coming back on your show. You got to come back on mine, man. It's always a blast. But y'all already know in the comment section, man. Let me know how you felt about the conversation and your thoughts on this Aaron Rodgers fiasco. But don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And as always, until next time, baby, peace.